we have the Parsha of Parshas Vayechi. We have Yaakovs' end. Yaakovs, the end of his life with the passing on, the giving of the brachos to the children, to Yosef. Everyone's all together. The fam is back together again in Mitzrayim. And they're living there for many, many years. The Parsha goes kind of quickly, but they've been living there for many years now. And Yaakov realizes that his time is coming, and he wants to pass on the brachos to the next generation. So he calls in Yosef, we know. He brings Ephraim and Menashe, he switches the hands, he gives them the bracha, Malach HaGoel. He calls in the rest of the brothers, he gives them each their bracha / rebuke. Then Yaakov dies, and the story kind of ends. That's really the end of Sefer Bereshis. So there are a couple interesting things when you look at the psukim. Number one, in the beginning of the Parsha, when Yaakov Avinu calls for Ephraim and Menashe to come, he says a very, very strange language. He says to Yosef to bring the children, and he gives kind of a whole background about what happened when, Rachel died and he didn't bury her in the right place, whatever it may be. And he tells them a very, very strange thing. In Mem Ches Hey, all of a sudden, Yaakov Avinu is speaking, Ve'ata shnei vanecha hanoladim lecha be'eretz Mitzrayim, that your two boys, your two children, Ephraim and Menashe, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim, ad bo'iyeh lecha Mitzrayima, before I came into the picture, li heim. They're mine. They're mine. Ephraim and Menashe, those are my grandkids. Now it's very, very strange. Rav Moshe Feinstein asks a question in Drash Moshe. He says, I don't understand. The two grandchildren who probably he had the least shaychus to were Ephraim and Menashe. They were born, they didn't even know who their grandfather was. Yaakov didn't even know that Ephraim and Menashe existed. And now he's here, the whole family's all together, all the Einaklach are all sitting around, and Lihaim, the two people that I Pasha didn't even know, the two grandkids that I had zero contact with, who didn't grow up playing ball with me, who never sat on my lap, never got a treat, never sat next to me in shul, these are the grandkids that are mine. Very, very strange. Why is it Lihaim? Why is it that these two grandchildren, out of all of them, would be the ones that Yaakov Avinu has the affinity for? That's question number one. Question number two is a question that all the Mefarshim ask. What's pshat with the switching of the hands? What's pshat with the switching of the hands? Because let's say you have Ephraim and Menashe in front of you. They came up to Yaakov Avinu, and Yaakov wants to give them a bracha. So he wants to give Ephraim one bracha and Menashe another bracha, whatever it may be. And he puts his right hand out and he says, that's not right. I want to move my right hand to the other side so that it should be on Ephraim's head. But guess what? He gives them both the same bracha. So what's the significance of switching his hand if he's going to end up giving them the exact same bracha? If he switched his hand and he said, okay, to the one where my right hand rests, I'm giving you this bracha. And to the one where my left hand rests, I'm going to give you that one. But if he's going to give them the same bracha, at the end of the day, what's the difference of where his hand is? Question number two. Question number three is when he gives them the bracha, a very, very strange thing happens. He puts them in front of him. Vayashes es Rosh Ephraim hu atzair, v'esmalo al Rosh Menashe, sikel es yadav ki Menashe habechor. He flips the hands so that it should go to Ephraim, the right hand. Vayevarich es Yosef vayomar. Yaakov blesses Yosef, and he says, and then it goes on, Hamalach hagoel osimi kora. Who's that bracha to? Ephraim and Menashe. He's not talking to Yosef. He's not talking about Yosef at all. The bracha is going to Ephraim and Menashe, and the pasuk says he gave a bracha to Yosef and said, now he turns to the grandkids and gives them a bracha. So who's getting the bracha here? Is it Yosef? Is it Ephraim and Menashe? Those are our three questions. Number one, what's Lihaim? Why is it that the two grandchildren who Yaakov had the least shaychus to of all the rest of the children of the Shiftei Ka, those are the ones who, Lihaim, number one. Number two, what is the nafkamina? Who cares where the hand is? He's giving them the exact same bracha. Ephraim and Menashe are getting the exact same bracha. And question number three is, who's really even getting this bracha? It says, Vayevarech es Yosef, Vayomar, and then we don't know what he really said to him. He turns to the kids and he starts talking to them. Is there something we're missing? Was there a bracha to Yosef first and then a bracha to the kids? What's pshat? So Rav Moshe has a beautiful answer. Rav Moshe says in the Drash Moshe, which if you don't own, is a beautiful sefer to own. It's my favorite Parsha sefer, the Drash Moshe. Every time I open it up, it's like, it wows me. So I'm so afraid to open it up because it's like, is this going to be the time that I'm not wowed by something Rav Moshe has to say? And it's been about 10 years of learning the Drash Moshe, and I've never not been wowed. So Rav Moshe writes so beautifully. He says, Tzarich lomar, shehu chidush gadol be'inyan ad kama hu chiyuv chinuch v'halimud be'echos. Because when we think about what is our goal in this world, what is our tafkid? Our tafkid is to be mechanich the next generation. Our tafkid is to take what we received from our parents, what we received from our grandparents, and give it over to the next generation. That's like everything we're doing here. That's the whole purpose of life here. So now if we're able to do that, we're able to teach, our kids. We learn the Aleph Beis, we teach them the Aleph Beis. We knew the Parsha, we teach them the Parsha. But says Rav Moshe, it goes so much deeper than that. Shelo sagi b'mashe yoel chinucho kisheyiya etzlo. That the chinuch is not just when the person is sitting in front of me and now I'm able to teach them. Aval tzarich lahashpia kol kach al beno v'talmido. I need to have such an impression on my children. I need to educate them in such a way she'af bein ovdei avodah zara, that even in a place where is not near me, it's not in the Beis Medrash, it's not in the four walls of my home, but they're still going to be able. The chinuch that I gave to my son Yosef, even before he went down to Mitzrayim, is still alive and well when he is being mechanech his children in a completely different environment. We know that Yosef HaTzadik, when he was faced with the sin with Eshes Potiphar, what was it that held him back? He saw the image of his father. It was the chinuch that his father had. Says Rav Moshe, you know what real chinuch is? It's not that Yosef didn't sin because of Yaakov. It's that Ephraim and Menashe lived their lives because of the chinuch from Yaakov. It's that the chinuch was transgenerational. It was intergenerational. It wasn't just father to son, but it went all the way down, even though he never even met them. He came to Mitzrayim and he met Ephraim and Menashe, and his first thoughts, he met these boys, he saw how they acted, he saw how they spoke, he saw how they looked, and he said, Li Haim, those are mine. That's a product of my chinuch. I educated my child in the right way, and I didn't even need to see them. So yes, the other grandchildren who grew up on my lap, who sat next to me in shul, who I took to the ball game, who I had a whole, childhood with, shkoyach, that's the normal way of the world. Everyone hopefully can, be able to succeed in chinuch to such a point where the people who are in their seviva, the people who are in their surrounding, they're able to have an impression on. But the real chinuch comes, the real education happens in a place where you're not even near the grandchildren. You just did the step one, and now the ones who you educated are able to carry on the messages you gave to that generation and pass it on. What's the pshat with Sikel es Yadov? What's the pshat why he put his hand over? Says Rav Moshe. He says, V'nira, dehanafka minahu le'inyan hakavod. Yes, they got the same bracha, but one is worthy of honor more than the next. Why? Was Ephraim better than Menashe? Was Ephraim better than Menashe? No. Shehare es Ephraim tzarich yoser lekabein uperish. Why? She'eno b'shvil ma'alaso yoser al Menashe. Ephraim was no better than Menashe. It wasn't because Ephraim was a better learner, or Ephraim was a better balmidos, or he was a better kid. Ela b'shvil hadoros sheyatzu mehem. Chazal tell us, why was Ephraim more zoche to the bracha? Why was it that he got the right hand placed on him? Because of the future generations that would come out of Ephraim. It's because the future generations that came from him, that's why he was zoche to the bracha more. That's why he was zoche to the kavod. Says Rav Moshe, you can never end your chinuch. It goes till the last day. Yes, you might have had great children. You had Ephraim and you had Menashe and Shkoyach, and they're both wonderful. But guess what? Ephraim had better kids. And Ephraim's chinuch went further down the line. Menashe, okay, there were some kids that came out that were not so great. Ephraim, he was the one that your chinuch lasted throughout the generations. Your chinuch kept going on and on as the generations continued. Says Rav Moshe, v'yilmad mizeh, that we have to learn, there's never a time where the chinuch ends. It's not a time your son becomes a big Rosh Yeshiva, it's not over. They need to become better and better and better, and you have to be mechanech them that their children become better, and the grandchildren become. It's never ending. It's a never ending process. So what's pshat? So we answered Lihain. Why was it that Yaakov felt such a strong connection to Ephraim and Menashe? Because even though he wasn't mechanech them, he never had the chance to, bounce them on his knee as a little kid. He saw that Yosef inculcated the chinuch that Yaakov gave to him, so much so that he was able to pass it on to the next generation in such a beautiful way that even without Yaakov ever meeting them, Lihaim, they were the bearers of his great tradition. Number two, what's the pshat with moving the hands over to the side? It must be because the right hand represents kavod. And the right hand is more fitting for Ephraim because he was the one that passed it on through all the generations. He was the one that kept the chinuch going. So says Rav Hirsch, what's pshat in the pasuk? What's pshat in the pasuk? Vayevarich es Yosef vayomar, that Yaakov Avinu blessed Yosef and he said nothing. All of a sudden it goes to the grandchildren. Ephraim and Menashe, Hamalach Hagol Simi Korah. So where's the bracha? Says Rav Hirsch so gorgeously. He blessed Yosef in blessing his sons. For the highest blessing a father can receive is indeed the blessing with which his children receive. The entire bracha to Yosef was that he gave a bracha to Ephraim and Menashe. It was to teach Yosef this exact lesson. It's not just about me and you. It's not about a father to a child. The bracha I'm giving to you is to recognize that the chinuch needs to be intergenerational. It needs to go all the way. What I'm giving to you cannot just be between me and you. It needs to pass over. It needs to go on to the next generation. I want Ephraim and Menashe, when they teach their children, to keep the chinuch that I received from my parents alive. That kol zman that the chinuch is happening, the neshama of the mechanech, the neshama of the one who educated, is still going to be alive. And I think now we can understand what Chazal tell us very cryptically about Yaakov Avinu. Because at the end of this week's Parsha, and at the end of Sefer Bereshis, the pasuk says something very, very strange. Vayichal Yaakov letzavos es banav. After all the blessings are given out, after all the brachos are done, Vayasof raglov el hamita, he gathered up his feet into the bed. Vayigva vayasef el amav. Yaakov Avinu, he gathered unto his people. I never know how to translate that. Vayigva vayasef el amav. There's always usually a third verb that happens there. It's vayigva vayamas vayasef el amav. It's always that he dies. And it doesn't say that he dies over here. So Chazal say, Yaakov Avinu lo meis. Yaakov Avinu lo meis. So obviously it doesn't mean in the physical sense. We know that Yaakov Avinu died. The haraya, the next pasuk over there, the children see that their father died. Okay, so we know that it happened. But what's the pasuk trying to teach us by saying Yaakov Avinu lo meis? And I think the answer is that kol zman that the chinuch is continuing in Klal Yisrael, kol zman that each child is teaching their children, and each grandparent is taking achrayus for their grandchildren, and everyone's trying to continue going back what Yaakov gave to Yosef, and what Yaakov gave to Ephraim and Menashe, and what Yosef was able to give to Ephraim and Menashe even without Yaakov present. But he was able to keep the chinuch going, so kol zman that the chinuch is still alive in Klal Yisrael, then Yaakov Avinu lo meis. The melamed, the mechanech is still breathing. The mechanech is still alive and well. Each time that we take achrayus for the next generation, that we take achrayus not just for our kids, but for the people around us, for the city around us, for the children, not just our children, but our children's children, going on and on and on. It's a beautiful thing. That, in a way, it keeps us alive. It keeps our Torah alive. So much of what I have today is Baruch Hashem, because I have wonderful parents, but also because I have wonderful grandparents. The grandparents gave me such an education, and guess where that came from? It came from their parents. So now when I'm learning Torah and I'm davening and I'm doing chesed, I'm not just giving nachas to my father.
I'm giving nachas to my grandparents, to the great-grandparents, and all of a sudden, through doing that, I'm keeping all of them alive. That they all have a chelek in my maasim. They all have a chelek in my learning, in my Torah, in my tefillah. Everything that I do keeps them alive because even though they're not here, like Yaakov Avinu, even though they've never met me, I never met my great-grandparents, but liheim, but I'm theirs. Because even though they're not here, I'm living the life that they wanted for me. Their kids were educated me in a way that they would have wanted. So kol zman that the chinuch is alive in Klal Yisrael, Yaakov Avinu lo meis, kol zman that we take achrayus for the next generations, and we realize that our job does not end here, but as Rav Moshe says, it's to always go yoser v'yoser, more and more and more. We're mechabed those that keep the generations going and keep the chinuch going, midor ledor, then hopefully Yaakov Avinu lo meis and the chinuch in Klal Yisrael shall only continue growing.